Hey folks, welcome to another tutorial here at CodeApprise. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to create a website from scratch using pure, modern HTML and CSS in the right way, responsive, and properly. So all I ask is that if you enjoy my content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you this content. Remember, I'm the main presenter of the channel, right? If you don't know me, I'm Gil Grillis, CEO of CodeApprise and instructor for most of the courses. But we also have other content creators. So if you like our work, support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. Just a reminder that the project I'm going to bring, in fact, is based on an existing project here on YouTube, right? I don't exactly remember the name of the author, but it already exists. Hey folks, welcome to another tutorial here at CodeApprise. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to create a website from scratch using pure, modern HTML and CSS in the right way, responsive, and properly. So all I ask is that if you enjoy my content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you this content. Remember, I'm the main presenter of the channel, right? If you don't know me, I'm Gil Grillis, CEO of CodeApprise and instructor for most of the courses. But we also have other content creators. So if you like our work, support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. Just a reminder that the project I'm going to bring, in fact, is based on an existing project here on YouTube, right? I don't exactly remember the name of the author, but it already exists. But it's from the foreign country, and he made this project using Vue. The guy is really good too. But then I decided to take this project. All the credits go to him, and I'm bringing it for us to develop with pure HTML and CSS. It's easier and also accessible for all kinds of audiences, especially for beginners who are starting now. The project will be very cool, and if you're a student of the Tech package, the source code will be available down below in the Dunk platform's description for you to access. If you want to learn how to program from scratch, develop websites, systems, applications, learn about infrastructure, and even English for programmers, also check out the links in the Tech package description. Let's start this tutorial without further ado. Alright then guys, this is the project we're going to develop. I don't have it in Adobe XD or basically anywhere because it's a very simple project to be done. And we're going to do everything with pure HTML and CSS. So the first thing I'm going to do here, guys, is to create a folder called Starbucks on my desktop, which is the store that the Starbucks coffee, which is the landing page that we're going to make a tutorial for. I have an assets folder that I'm going to leave in the description, which has all the assets you need, project images that we'll use in development. I'm going to drag and drop them into this folder, okay, and I'm going to leave this screenshot open. Actually, it's open for us to follow during the tutorial. It's not ideal, but since it's a small and easy to follow project, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to open the folder now. I'm going to use VS Code for this project, and I'm going to come here and open the folder I just created, which is called our Starbucks tutorial. Alright, I have an extension called Live Server that allows me to see changes in real time. I'm going to create a new file here, which I'm going to call index.html. Okay, so if we look at the layout image, there's not much mystery, right? What will really catch more attention here are the positions we're going to make, but stick with me and I'll teach you some cool techniques. Of course, there are several ways we can do this, but anyway, let's start, guys, by creating this header here, okay, with the logo and the menu, alright. So let's go to our index.html, put the HTML. There's also a body tag. I'm going to have a read tag, and I'm going to put the title, which will be Starbucks Coffee. Coffee with 2. I think that's how you spell coffee. I just had a blank moment, but anyway. We'll also have our link tag ref CSS style. CSS, where our style will be, and I need to say it's of type style sheet to interpret it correctly, okay. Finally, we need to put our responsive tag here because we want our website to behave on all screen sizes and not have conflicts. Let me explain this meta tag here. So, this meta tag known as viewport, we basically say the following: if I didn't put this meta tag here when I entered on a mobile device, the browser by default would try to adapt it as if it were desktop. When I do this, I say that I want the widget, regardless of the screen size it's on, to be of the device widget, precisely because we're already going to prepare it for responsiveness. Although it's a bit difficult, at least the version I saw when the YouTuber coded it, he didn't make the mobile version, he only made the desktop. Because this effect here seems to be kind of, let's say, how are we going to adapt this for mobile? Even so, keeping that in mind, we're going to do the desktop version first, and then we'll see what we can do for mobile. So, alright, now that we've done that, I'm going to create a folder here in my root directory, which I'm going to call CSS. Inside here, I'm going to create a file called style.css, and the first thing I'm going to do is put a margin of 0, which I usually do, padding of 0, and I use box sizing. Border box. What this does is basically reset my document and apply a margin and padding reset, because the browser automatically applies these by default. Using box sizing. Border box is my preferred way of working with internal spacing, but I won't go into too much detail about this property. Let's move on. Another thing, if you want to use a custom font, it's up to you. I'm not going to import anything from Google Fonts to make this tutorial even simpler for beginners, but we can continue by starting to structure our website, starting with a header. Notice that this is the tag in HL5. We're going to have a class that I'm going to call center. I'm going to close center down here, and I'm going to put two classes inside, which is the logo of our Starbucks. I'm going to put nshirk, and inside the assets folder we have logo. Ping. So here, I'm going to put assets logo. Ping. So alright, now that we've done that, I'm going to create a folder here in my root directory that I'm going to call CSS, inside of which I'm going to create a file called style.css. The first thing I'm going to do is put a margin of 0, which I usually do, skin at 0, and I use box sizing border box. Basically, I'm resetting my document and applying the margin and skin reset because the browser automatically applies this for us by default. And box sizing border box is how I prefer to work using internal spacing in this way. I won't go into too much detail on this property. Let's continue. Another thing, if you want to use a custom font, it's up to you. I'm not going to import anything from Google Fonts to make this tutorial even easier for beginners. Nevertheless, we can continue by starting to mark up our website by putting in a header. Note that this is the read, this is the header, HL5 tag. We're going to have a div class that I'm going to call center. I'm going to close center down here and comment it out. And inside here, we're going to have two classes. Div class logo, which is the logo of our Starbucks. I'm going to put an image shirk, and inside the assets folder we have logo. Ping. So I'll do assets logo. Ping here. Then I'm going to create a div class that I'm going to call menu. I'm going to close it. You could use the nav tag if you want, but in my case, since I'm very used to working with React, I don't rely too much on these HL5 tags, except for the main ones like header, section, and footer. But if you want to use the nav tag here, you can. Inside here, I'm going to put in the links directly. What links do we have here? Home, menu, what's new, and contact us. So I'll put in a blind link initially, and then I'll put in home, copy it 4 times, then about. What do we have next? Menu, and lastly, what's new? We're going to use Flexbox. So I'm going to grab the center, which is a class that is part of my boot CSS that I'm creating for this project. So it will always have a display flex, a flex wrap, a max widget to limit our context, and I believe 1100 pixels is good. Max widget 1100 pixels, margin 0, automatic, and a padding of 0.2% so that it doesn't stick together, which is how I usually work and teach my students. With this, I can already turn on my live server by right-clicking and opening it here. If you don't have this plugin, you can run it normally in your browser. In my case, I opened an app here that's saved in my cache for PWA. I believe it's saved anyway. But alright, we can continue. As you can see, the logo and the menu are already centered within the limit that I set. Now we're going to move on to styling our menu, which is extremely easy because I'm going to do the following. I'm going to take my logo and give it a width of 50% to give the menu a little more space. Note that the menu has already gone to the other side, but if we look at the image, it seems like they have more spacing. If you want to increase the context, you can put 1280 pixels here, which might be better in this situation. Alright, I'm going to leave it like this. In my reader now, I'm also going to apply a 20 pixel zero padding so it won't be stuck up there. So let's see how it's looking now. It updates in real time. Okay, now I'm going to grab my menu, give it a 100% widget just to show you something. Notice how it dropped down. This happens because when I put the wrap property here, I'm basically telling the Flexbox to always try to keep everything in one line, which is the now wrap. That's the default value. When I put wrap, I can manipulate the dimensions, and if there's no space, it drops to the next line, which is exactly the type of freedom I want to have. So here I'm going to give it 50% and give a text align right for my menu items to go to the right. Alright, it's aligned there. Now my menu, the links inside, black color, text decoration none, font weight bold, and we can give each of them a margin right of 15 pixels to see if it's starting to look good. So we have home, about, menu, what's new. If we compare it here with our layout, we can see it's starting to look similar, but we can still improve it. So what I'm going to do is I applied a font to my entire website that's compatible with all browsers, which is Verdana, just to have a slightly bolder and more faithful font to the project. I also put a 30 pixel padding top on the menu to align it more with the logo, as you can see, and this way we have a little more fidelity to the layout we're following. The menu isn't so bold, but at least we're getting somewhere. I want to do a section now with you, which is perhaps one of the most boring sections we're going to do, which is this one that people must be asking, how am I going to do this? It seems quite difficult, and indeed this is quite challenging to do. So to be honest, I haven't even tested this yet. I'm going to do it live with you in the video. But the idea is basically to create a circle with CSS and position it with absolute position. So to do this, I'm going to look at what I have here. I have this menu. Okay, what we can do is put our HTML in my body. They will have a height of 100% and the overflow Y will be hidden. I want to see if this technique will work. So I'm saying that the maximum size my window can have is the window itself. There can't be any content below it, meaning there won't be a scroll bar on this landing page I'm making. To test this, I'll create a dummy div here just to test it out, and I'll set a height of 9,000 pixels and a background color of red to see if it works. Then I have a background here after the menu, and you'll notice that it didn't create any scroll bar. This was the first thing I wanted because this page must not have a scroll bar because I want to stick faithfully to this. So the first test passed, and it's actually good for those who don't know how to debug when working with responsive design and these techniques. Okay, now we're going to the next step, which is to create a section class, and we're going to call this section class about, which is about Starbucks. So let's create this section here. I'll call it about. Now we're going to create our section. I'm going to call this section class extras. So S extras, that's when things are going to start getting interesting. Let's go. My about section class, which is what I have here, I'm going to say section about position relative. Now my extras point is going to have an absolute position with a bottom 0 and a right 0 as well. And for this about section, I'm going to define a height for it, roughly around 200 pixels. And my about section will have a height with a calc of 100% minus 20 pixels of 200 pixels. I want to see if this will work. I'm going to add an ID of 200 pixels and a height of 200 pixels and a background color of green, which I know isn't exactly green, but just for testing purposes. So as you can see, I got the effect I wanted and positioned it exactly where I wanted it, but this is much larger and the color is completely different. Let's inspect these colors using any software to pick up these green colors. We can get the browser menu itself in a smart way, use the dropper and pick up this Starbucks color, which is this hexadecimal code here. I'm using Chrome Developer Tools. Okay, let me update it to go back to normal. Now, this color will be exactly the way I want it with the hexadecimal code I picked up. But now, it's going to be much larger. I would say maybe a height of 700 pixels pixels and an ID of 400 pixels. Okay, let's test it out. It's starting to look similar. We can increase the ID a bit. So I can put 700 pixels and now a border radius of 50% so it becomes a circle. Here is our circle, but GUI. This is not a circle. What do we need to do to make it a circle? Let's increase it by 1000 pixels here, and now this right here, it will be 50 pixels less with a bottom of 50 pixels less to create that illusion that we want. It didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted. Maybe I exaggerated the size a bit. Let me adjust it here. So I managed to get an approximate result, but then this overflow appeared. This ugly thing, precisely because we are manipulating positions here. So to fix this, in addition to overflow Y, hidden, we will also want to use overflow X, hidden like this. And there we have what I want. Now in here, in these extras, we have this image of coffee. So again, this position. Absolute will serve me because I'm going to put this coffee image inside it. Let me see which one it is. Let's find the coffee image here. So for this image, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to come here and write image_assets image. Ping, let's see the result. I didn't have to manipulate much. It already turned out the way I wanted. Cool. So there we were able to achieve the effect that so many people were wondering how we would achieve. On the other hand, we have the logos of the social networks here. This is extremely easy. We have Insta, Twitter, and so on. So with this, I'm going to create a div class called social media, and inside it I'm going to have an image shirk with a link. Of course, you can point it wherever you want. So in my case, I'm going to put image shirk assets Facebook. Ping, you can put it in any order you want. Here will be Instagram. Ping, and finally, we have Twitter. Ping, if we see where it is now, it's completely misaligned, no problem. We will now use my social media position, absolute, like this. If I put left, 0 and top 0, I want you to notice something. It's here, but that's not where I want it. So we need to somehow work on it to make it aligned here in the end. How do we do that? We put the right here, but when I put the right, by logic, this is the parent element, so it went to a place that we can't see. So we need to remove what we are putting here. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to put 500 pixels. Then it stayed here perfectly, and I can manipulate the top, maybe put it at 40 pixels. And here's my social media image. I can give each one a display block so they fall and stack on top of each other. Cool, cool. Then we can also add maybe a right of 500 pixels. Let's put it at 510 pixels so it's not too close. And here let's put a maximum widget of 40 pixels so it's not too big, and a margin of 10 pixels 0 between each one. Cool, more or less like this. I think they come down a bit more, and this widget is still big, so I'll leave it at 20 pixels. It's starting to take shape. Great, let's go down a bit more, put a top of 200 pixels. Okay, let's put a larger margin between them, 20 pixels 0, and there it is. Let's test by decreasing this window size. Not like this is totally mobile, but if you look for any screen size up to a tablet, our landing page here will work well. Only for mobile. If you want part 2, I can bring it, because there are some cases where the strategies we apply here on desktop, for example, this would be infeasible on mobile. So we would need to think of some way to adapt this for mobile. If I were really to do it, to make the mobile version of this with you, I could even give you a spoiler to do at home. I wouldn't do this section this way. I would probably use this background here, but I would do something cleaner for mobile. So in the course, I teach you a lot about this. For example, leaving this section only available on desktop and tablet, and when it comes to mobile, I show another section to simplify the process. If you want part 2, put it in the comments, and I will gladly bring it to adapt this page for mobile. So we've done the hardest part of the tutorial, and now the easiest part is this text, which is lorem ipsum, and then we can finish our little project. For that, I'll come here to my section class about, which I have. I'm going to create a div class center here, like this, and in this div class center, I'm going to put a div class text about, okay, and we'll have an h1, which will have this text. It's not just coffee, it's Starbucks. So we do it like this. It's not just coffee, it's Starbucks. And Starbucks has a slightly different color. So you can come here and put a span. There are better ways, but I'll do it manually. And this Starbucks will have this little color here that we know is from Starbucks, right? So we come here and put a style color like this. If we look in the browser, there it is, very cool. We just need to increase our text considerably. So the first thing is maybe let me see here, this text about. We grab this text about, already put a really sinister top margin of, I don't know, 100 pixels, and my text about h1, point size of 50 pixels, maybe a bit big, but it turned out to be very faithful to what I want. Now the easy part, we can put a paragraph, right, to illustrate what, and we go to the Lauren Y site to generate some random text for us. I'm going to go here, generate Lauren Y, Ctrl+C, and I'm going to come here, Ctrl+V, let me just close this tag nicely, and then I'll create a button, which can also be a link, that will be learn more. So let's style my text about P, which has a margin of 20 pixels 0, color black. Let me see if it's bold. It's bold, right? So point size of 14 pixels and point height bold. I want to see how it looks. Great, but it exceeded the size a bit there. No problem. I'll fix it by putting a max width of 800 pixels. I think that's enough. Look how cool. Great. Now we're going to make the button. So my text about button, we're going to have a border 0, and we're going to take this background color here, color white, border radius of 8 pixels. Let me see how this border radius is. I'm going to put about 10 pixels, a widget of 80 pixels, and a height of 30 pixels just to test. And we have our Learn More button. I'm also going to put a point to cursor so that our user knows it's clickable. Okay. And I'm going to increase the widget to 100 pixels. And we have a very cool button there, and that's how we finish our landing page in less than 30 minutes. The main point here is some techniques that if we stop to see, this landing page is extremely simple. However, I showed you some very interesting techniques here, especially this one with the circle, right? I showed a lot about positioning, which today to do these more complex layouts, this type of thing requires. And I also showed several overflow techniques, right? I showed the calc here too, which served for us to calculate the about to be able to position it correctly. This project was very interesting, folks, because looking at it, it seems very simple, but to make this effect here, we had to apply some techniques. And the coolest thing is that, as you noticed, it works in any size, even tablet. If you want part 2 for me to apply the responsive and show even more advanced techniques, let's reach 500 likes and share this video with friends so that I can get more views and have the incentive I need to double myself. And besides giving classes at Dunk on our platform, bring this type of content to YouTube for you. So that's it. I hope you liked it. I wish you a strong hug and we'll see you in the next class. See you later.